Hey everyone, we are here to talk about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1, Chapter 9, The Marshal. And joining me tonight, well, first of all, I am Rachel Radner, but joining me tonight, we've got Christian Blatt. Hey, Christian.
As always, this is the way. Thank you.
This,
Great to be here. Very excited to not only get to watch the show earlier today, but now to get to talk about it. So that'll be great.
yeah, and this is the first time we've done this show together. When we were still with AfterBuzz, I was not on the Mandalorian panel. So Christian, what was you know, I'm assuming you were on that panel, right? At one point.
Yeah, it was I was on for the whole season. It was myself and Zia because usually at AfterBuzz, if you wanted me, you had to take her as well. It was actually not a choice; it was a package deal. You had it was like the old Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. I'll let you guess which one I was, and also our friend Ryan Nilsson was on it, and Steph Sabra. So it was the four
Yeah.
of us every week, really diving into it. I mean, and we were, the expectation was that the show was going to be good, but we got to find how great that show was week in, week out. We started to realize it. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know about, I know it's called the child. Okay. But if I ever refer to him as Baby Yoda, nobody correct me in the chat. I know he's the child, but he is a baby who looks like Yoda. So it's okay to call him
Okay.
Baby Yoda. We know he's not Baby Yoda because Yoda is dead at this point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but anyway,
exactly,
yeah. So we
exactly.
got to talk about it. Like we found out how great that show was in real time, and it took
Mhm.
like 8 weeks. Although I think 2 weeks in, we're like, oh, this is great.
Well, I know, like,
Yeah.
I wasn't on the panel, but I was watching last year as they were airing episodes. And for me, the most brilliant tie-in was when we saw oh God, I almost said Baby Yoda, the child, when we saw that the child was able to heal using the Force. And they aired that episode right before the Rise of Skywalker, when we know with the dyad and with Rey and even with Ben Solo, they were able to heal using the Force. So just the way that they played into that, and we got that crossover, I really loved watching Mandalorian live, and then going and seeing episode 9. It seemed to work very well, and was kind of, it tracked well. So yeah, I mean, for me, like, I'm just really excited to talk about this, and there's a lot of crossover. Christian, you and I were kind of talking about this before the show. There's some crossover. I am a huge writer and reader, and I read all of the Star Wars books. So one of the books I'm going to talk about tonight is Aftermath by Chuck Wendig, because when we talk about Cobb Camp, we're going to kind of, like, he's not new. He's new to the screen, but he's not new to the Star Wars universe. So, yeah, I'm going to just kind of start at the top. And Christian, being reintroduced to Din and seeing, Mondo, and, we kind of picked up where we left off, really, from season 1. What were some of your thoughts as we got this exchange between Gor Koresh and Din? And yeah,
Yeah.
what was kind of, yeah.
So first, I'll talk about how much I appreciated the recap. Even though it had been almost a year, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, because I remember it in my head, but it's like, oh yeah, thanks for refreshing me. But yeah, I first of all, if I could buy tickets to watch two Gamorrean guards fight, I would pay anything. And that's not just because I'm starved for entertainment in the age of pandemic. I would love to watch Gamorrean guards fight. I thought that it was great. It was a typical Mando situation where he's surrounded by 5 people with guns, and I see him in a lot of ways. I mean, you can compare him to a lot of sort of action heroes. I compare him to Frank Castle, the Punisher.
Hmm.
He doesn't even blink. He's like, oh, there's 5 guns. Oh no, what am I going to do? Kill everyone? So
Yeah, and
I thought that. Go ahead.
no, and the armor, it's crazy to me that, the way that they play it, even though you get no facial expressions, you see everything. Like you can just feel it in the performance, how it does not faze him when there's five guns pointed in his direction.
Yeah, it's like obviously you're not going to get facial expressions off of him, but it's like body language. You can tell when, you're looking at the helmet dead on when he's just staring at you. And, there's like he might stand or just position himself a little differently when it's a little bit more of a lighthearted moment. So, I mean, it's such a tremendous job that Pedro Pascal does, for someone that, we almost never saw in all of season one, which was
Yeah.
fascinating. But to the point that it's like just a continuation. Like I'm for shows like this, I'm always envious of, the person that's going to find this in season 3 and just, stay up late one night or spend a whole weekend watching all of it. And, the fact that this is called chapter 9 is like, yeah, remember last year that was chapter 8. So yeah, this is just more, this isn't some new story. They're going to continue it. So, yeah, I was talking to a friend beforehand that it didn't miss a beat, and it was just like it was like putting on the most comfortable sweatshirt that you have the first day of fall. You're like, oh yeah, of course this fits that well. That's why I always wear it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like we know, like they're continuing literally right where they began, or where they ended. They're beginning again. We even a little bit later get the same exact kind of shot with Din walking into the bar in Tatooine. Literally the same kind of shot that we get in chapter 1. As we see in chapter 9. But before we get there, the only other comment I really want to make about that opening scene is that they actually, like, one of the goons that was around with Gore was actually, he is a Zabrak, and that is Darth Maul's species. So I just wanted to kind of mention that as like a random Easter egg, just because we're getting a lot from Star Wars that if you blink once, you're gonna miss it. And so yeah, that was one of the guys that was there.
I don't even know that I blinked, but I definitely missed it. So that's very cool to hear that. And I kind of like it was in the trailer, but I sort of like that moment, when he's asked like, you sure? I don't think that was the scene, but just the idea that is this really a place for the child? And he's like, yeah, anywhere I go, he goes,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that sort of just how much that bond has strengthened. And I also appreciate the fact that the child didn't let fame go to his head, and he didn't, try and decide that he was going to steal the episode. They used him the right amount, but in the way where you're like, I love that little guy,
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that I'm sure he's going to have his moments
Sure.
that we're going to get, like where there is like an episode that is very focused on him. But I think what I loved about just seeing, like you said, we got just enough of the child to the point where I feel like, we're going to talk about this a little later, but when we actually get to the Krayt Dragon and we get the scene with Din, literally, like, it seems like he's going to sacrifice himself to basically blow up this dragon. But oh my gosh, not Yoda, the child. It's like you can see in his facial expressions that he's not doubting for 1 second that his father is going to come back for him. He doesn't even look as scared as he used to look in season 1. And it's funny to me because we get that scene where just everything, like with the child, he seemed less scared of being abandoned or losing his new father figure already. But they've also grown so much. Like we saw that growth in season 1. So season 2, I feel like it's going to be less about the child being worried over that and more about what's going to happen when Din actually finds people that he can leave the child with. Or a group that he can leave the child with. So, all right, we get this opening scene, and then boom, we're back on Tatooine. And I think what I loved about this is that, number one, I'm never going to complain if we go back to Tatooine. Like, that's where we can get all of the Easter eggs. But also, it's really starting to remind me. There's a book called Kenobi, and it's written by John Jackson Miller, and it's kind of like the same. It takes place on Tatooine. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi, literally right after the formation of the Empire, when he takes Luke. The book is no longer canon, but it came out in like 2012, 2013, right before they like switched over, and basically decanonized everything that is now considered legends. But it has the same feel as what we're seeing now, especially in this episode, especially with Cobb Camp the Marshal. So Christian, your thoughts on him, Timothy Oliphant, just in general, meeting the Marshal. What were your thoughts there?
I think that I've always been very concerned about seeing Boba Fett in this season. So the fact that we see a guy who just has the armor, and then when you take the helmet off and it's Timothy Oliphant, I'm like, great. This is fantastic. It's like, sure, there could have been some cool reveal, but I'm like, oh, look, it's one of like everybody's favorite actors. The only that maybe it would have been cooler if it was Matthew McConaughey or Keanu Reeves, but for the most part, you're like, yeah, that's awesome that it's him,
I mean, did you think for 1 second it was actually going to be Boba Fett, though?
No, but there's been a lot of talk. I mean, obviously we have to talk about Boba Fett in general, but I did not think that at that point it was going to be Boba Fett, but just the idea that he was just going to show up, because when they say that there's a Mandalorian on Tatooine and that this is, is it, 5 years after Return of the Jedi, you're like, all right, I think I know who it is. But it was definitely a cool reveal, and I like the explanation, his backstory. I love that we saw humans, or I guess essentially humans, interacting and communicating with Jawas and Tusken Raiders, and the fact that Mando speaks Raider is fantastic. I'm just like, what can he do? And
he was able to calm their, wolf creature. I don't think they actually have, official name that we've learned, but I love that Mondo, even though he's human, he doesn't really he kind of relates more to the Tusken Raiders, who are always wearing a mask. I feel like he's much more in tune with a group like that, who are kind of, seen as the outcasts, seen as, struggling. And I always love how, not just with Star Wars, but in general, any universe where they take a group of people like the Klingons, which is on my mind because of Star Trek Discovery, but even with the Klingons, there are always Klingons who don't fit the mold of how you see them. And same thing with Tusken Raiders, even more so than the Klingons. But Tusken Raiders, I feel like they are just so deeply misunderstood, and that they're, having an interpreter like Din there to kind of parse out what is actually being said helps so much. And obviously that's part of the problem they've had, is just that they literally do not speak the same language.
Yeah, no, and I think that obviously with Klingon, you're able to do a lot more and see, their actual have a conversation with them. But yeah, I think that more than any, and that's why this show is so great, because it's like, oh, you know what, we're going to delve into the plight of the Tusken Raiders, characters that are really so marginal. And I mean, when you see them in A New Hope, it's just really a plot device to bring Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi together. You know what I mean? So, the fact that we're really getting to understand them better, and of course, getting to see Jawas, all that, I love all that stuff. And yeah, the fact that that Din can speak to them, it goes a long way, because, I mean, Obi-Wan knew how to scare them off by making noises, but we hadn't really seen anybody interact with them on that level, so I'm all in on stuff like that, getting to know them a little bit better. Just to backtrack for a second, just because this is in the chat, our friend Ivan Soto, the look on Mando's face when Cobb Vanth took off his helmet back when he thought it was another Mandalorian was very powerful. The moment he took off the helmet, obviously, Din was like, okay, so this guy's not a Mandalorian because it's like, oh, you take your helmet off within like a minute,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was cool, and
Well,
just kind of getting to see that, yeah.
well, and I just want to say too, it's interesting because I'm thinking about Rebels and how the Mandalorians and Rebels. There's so many different, groups of Mandalorians that you get used to, like in Rebels, where people like Sabine, they so freely take off their helmet. But yeah, obviously, you know, speaking to what Ivan said, Din can kind of just tell. I don't even think it was about the fact that he took off the mask per se. I think it was just the facial expressions, and like I think that Mondo could tell just based on how this man was acting, that and just the way that he kind of looked and the expressions he was giving, that he was definitely not a Mandalorian. Because I think when you see someone face to face, or even if there's a mask between you and that person, when you see their face directly, you can kind of sense that that person is not part of your group. Just the way that he kind of like he didn't have the same. Um,
Yeah, he was getting a very distinctive "this is not the way" vibe off of
mm-hmm.
this guy. He's just
Yeah,
like, all right. But
yeah.
yeah, so I think and just sort of backtracking on something you said earlier. On the season 1 after show for AfterBuzz, I definitely complained the first time we went to Tatooine, only because it's like, ugh, come on, like there are other places in the galaxy. But at this point, I'm like, all right, it's kind of fun to see it because I know that they're basically trying to give us the breadcrumbs to lead us to Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it's like a lot of the galaxy I would still love to see, but it was cool that they went back. And anytime they go back, I'm glad that it's not like they go back and they walk into the the Mos Eisley Cantina. At least it's like they go
Mm-hmm.
different places on
Yeah.
Tatooine. That's kind of been cool.
Yeah, and that's interesting because um, it isn't like we're stuck, like you said, it isn't like we're stuck in Mos Eisley any longer. We get to see a different part of Tatooine,
Yeah.
which actually, this part of Tatooine we've actually seen before in Star Wars, but in Legends in a video game. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So this is like the first time we've seen it as part of canon. So I did like that we, like you said, got to a different part of Tatooine. I think for me, I the it feels very like based on what Jon Favreau has done before with season 1, it fits the tone, it fits that Western feel of what
Yeah.
he was going for. So I think what I'm waiting for, I want to see more of like we're getting that Western feel again, and I'm okay with that for the first episode. What I'm really hoping is that this kind of does lead into more of the mythical aspect of the Force. We have the child, and it's not like I get it. It's not always about the Force with Star Wars, but because the child is involved, I really do want to see what they can do outside of the characters that we know, outside of the Skywalkers, what they can show us with other Force users. There's already obviously been a rumor that Ahsoka might be joining at some point in season 2. That would be fun, but um, just kind of for now, like I guess what I'm saying is that we got this typical like Western let's go and slay the dragon episode. And I do like that we got to see more with the Tusken Raiders, and that we got to see this temporary union between humans and Tuskens. I thought that was interesting. But I would like to see it go beyond what they're doing. I would like to see it go like get to the punch a little bit faster this season. So that being said, I was very happy to kind of I was happy to see the child back with Din, and I was very, for me, I was happy they were on Tatooine, but that's because I love Tatooine. um, I also love the different like tactics they were using to actually slay the dragon. Um, and by slay, like that moment at the end where uh, Din actually, like, we think he's going to sacrifice himself, but he doesn't. I mean, I kind of knew as soon as he looked back and he grabbed the remote that was going to basically, detonate the bombs. I kind of knew what he was doing and that he was obviously going to survive. I mean, it's called the Mandalorian, but I didn't doubt for 1 second that he was going to pull it off. I also don't think the child doubted either. But Christian, how did you, when we kind of saw this going down, what were your overall thoughts on the actual, like, that moment where they are actually, defeating the beast, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the solution is, just like, yeah, we're just gonna basically put a lot of bombs under him. And I think that it became very apparent at one point that, oh, okay, so Mando's gonna basically get eaten by this thing, and we're gonna see him get spit out or fly out or whatever, because you're like, okay, so this is how they're going to explain how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit, which,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of the non-canonist of canons,
I have a
the
list.
original Marvel Star Wars series, issue number 81, which is the first issue after Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett comes out of the Sarlacc pit.
Well,
But then he ends up back in it, and then I know he comes out again another time.
so
So
thinking,
there's like non-canon, but still history of him having gotten out,
well,
because the armor, I guess, you can't digest it because it's the Beskar armor,
so it was the Dark Horse comic series, Dark Empire.
Yeah.
That's the one where basically what they said was that it was his armor, like you said, that saved him. But it was, so he did end up going into the Sarlacc, obviously, but he ended up blowing up the Sarlacc in the process of fighting his
they've
way out.
established that this dragon apparently ate a Sarlacc, so you're getting the idea, like, this thing is tougher than a Sarlacc.
Well, and so yeah, and then they ended up going more into detail. There's a book called The Mandalorian Armor by K.W. Jeter, and they basically explained exactly how Boba Fett had done it. And he literally showed up, like, after they explained how he got out of the Sarlacc. He literally became like a major character in Legends and ended up in the 10-book New Jedi Order series and in a ton of other Legends books. So to me, it wasn't surprising that they were going to bring him back at all. It based on the books that we had in Legends, I was not surprised.
Yeah, so the history of bringing back Boba Fett goes all the way to 1983, and I think that the Dark Empire comics were 1991. So it's like they realize the value they have in this character, and they have the explanation. It's plausible by science fiction standards that it couldn't eat him, and so there's a lot of great conversations in the chat, and we can't drag them all in. But Ivan's asking, Boba Fett has Beskar armor. He isn't Mandalorian. We'll see. I mean, because anything that's been written before isn't necessarily true about him.
And in Legends, Boba Fett actually became the leader of the Mandalorians. So
yeah.
I don't know how they're going to handle it.
I don't think because so you have to take into consideration that basically anything from before 2014 that isn't the trilogies, plural, doesn't necessarily count. And they picked and chosen the stuff. We saw the Darksaber, we saw Grand Admiral Thrawn on Rebels. They picked and chosen some really cool stuff. But you can't assume what it is. You don't know for sure what his backstory is until they tell you in the current continuity,
And even in the current continuity, they do not always, like, for example, in the book Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston, when they showed us, like, not to talk about something outside of Mandalorian, but if you go back to season 7 of Clone Wars, that very ending sequence where we learn about what happens to Ahsoka burying the sabers, that was altered from the canon book Ahsoka. It is slightly different. Same thing with Cobb, getting back to the Mandalorian. We saw him in Aftermath in the book, but his backstory is slightly different than what they described tonight. In today's episode.
Right. Well, speaking of sabers, by the way, this is the perfect opportunity to bring Zach Wilson here. a Jedi Master in his own right. Somewhere in the Dune Sea, he has a bunker where he's coming to us from.
I hear you.
The Force is strong with this one.
I felt a disturbance. I don't know.
So
Reference.
Zach, welcome to the party. We are talking Mandalorian Chapter
I'm
9.
gonna turn the light on.
Yeah. Now that you've done the bit,
Now that you're here, what are your? I just want to get your overall thoughts. Based on what we saw last season, what are some of your thoughts just overall after seeing this first episode of season?
Oh my god, this is so good. This was such a good episode. This was just the freaking toy box episode of just like no hold barred. There's like this, we're just gonna go through whatever Star Wars nonsense we want to throw at you. But it was also just, it was fun. I was laughing. Like I was in, like the child was being super cute like the whole time. And I was wondering what their big, because like the thing with last season was that first episode, I was lucky enough that I watched it like right away and had no spoilers. So when they revealed little Baby Yoda, I freaked out because it was brand new to me.
Yeah.
And it was mind blowing. And that's like, and I mean, we kind of knew that Fett was coming, but to see him, like to see the armor and it's like, that's clearly not him. But then to see him at the end, it was just like, that was a nice surprise. That I wasn't, even knowing that the actor was on this season, I wasn't sure that they were going to go that route. So I was excited to see it.
I think that was my favorite part of the whole episode was the end. And I'm with you though. Like I think that just all the lore that they brought in, all the Easter eggs, there's just so many things. Like even the crate dragon, that was the noise that Obi-Wan made in A New Hope to scare away the Tuskens. So it's like calling back to episode 4. But just like, I love the way you put that though, Zach, that it's basically just a sandbox that all Star Wars fans can play in and just, enjoy all the all the tidbits that were dropped there.
The fact that like go ahead, you had, that you had Cobb Vanth, a character from a freaking from a book.
Aftermath.
Like, I've read, and I did the audiobook, but like I've read, it's like, and I had basically forgotten that character existed. But like, that character from like a book wearing Boba Fett armor, riding a broken piece of the Anakin Skywalker pod racer. That was just one moment.
Well, and
insane.
By the way, when I saw your tweet where you put the spoilers in there about that, I thought you were talking about, we had him in the Boba Fett armor, holding one of those rifles, riding a bantha, which is literally a visual directly out of the Star Wars Christmas special when we first meet Boba Fett. Yeah. There's an animated Boba Fett holding that, riding a bantha. So I'm just
riding a bantha in that.
Yeah.
Wait, was he on a bantha or a dinosaur?
I thought, it might be a dinosaur, but it was very
clear. He's on like a brontosaurus.
Yeah, I think it might have. Yeah. So wait, you're making me think for the first time that maybe the Christmas special wasn't that great, but no, you're right. Just the way that he was writing it, it was like, I'm like, this isn't an accident,
Yeah.
Like they definitely get, the cinematographer and the director had like a still, like, do this with him in that arc.
And speaking to like things that people might not catch. Did you guys see the R5D4 unit that once belonged to
it's so funny that you mentioned that, because literally just now in the chat, Daniel Drew mentioned that. The other droid episode for that. The my favorite bad line reading in the trilogy is, Uncle Owen, this one's got a bad motivator. Shut up, Luke.
Back when he was whiny, Luke.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the behind the scenes like series that they did for Mandalorian? I have not
had a chance, but
so R5 is actually in the cantina in season 1, And they talked about throwing him up. Yeah, Daniel
Daniel Drew.
Daniel's all over it. Yeah.
He's there, and like like Jon Favreau was talking about, like he was just excited to do it, and like they intentionally put the black just like burn marks where the motivator blew up in episode 4. It's just I highly recommend, especially if you enjoy the movie making process, watching the I forget what it's called, the behind the scenes thing.
Yeah, it's right there. It's like it would have autoplayed after I finished the episode.
Yeah. It's super interesting from a filmmaking perspective, but it's also just really fun from a fan perspective as well.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. All the random tidbits, and yeah, I mean, I second that. Okay, so Zach, you joined us right as we were talking about the slaying of the dragon, as I'm kind of putting it. What did you? I mean, we got your overall thoughts, and Christian and I were kind of talking about how we had Mondo there to basically broker a deal between humans and Tuskens, and that's how they ended up defeating this beast. So, what were your thoughts on how they handled that scene in general? And
it was good. It was exciting. There was enough push. I can't help analyzing it as a writer, and I'm like, okay, so like this is where they fail, so they can do. Mm-hmm. It's like I like literally was watching it like, oh, they're pulling it out over that thing. It's way too early. This is gonna go wrong somehow, and it does. But like, so it was just. But the tension was good. The monster was fun to watch. It was really well animated. I love,
especially when it comes out of like the top of the mountain, because before we had just seen it, and then they're like, okay, you know how big this thing is, and I bet you thought we weren't going to show you, but here you go.
The surprise to me was the acidic mucus that just came shooting out. I was like, oh yeah.
At first, I thought it had been on a bachelorette party where they had Jägermeister, but then I realized it was something a little different. By the way, our pal Ivan points out it's called Disney Gallery Star Wars: The Mandalorian, right there on Disney Plus. Very easily found from the same menu as The Mandalorian.
It literally pops up, as Christian said, is the next thing, and it is definitely worth a watch.
But yeah, it was fun. The Krayt Dragon was a good, not villain, because it's just a creature, but a good force of nature to have to bring these two together. And again, this is a freaking cowboy show. This is the most Wild West. I think this might have been the most Wild West episode that they've done so far. Full on, just John Wayne riding into town Western.
Zach, I don't know. I know you said you do read the books. I don't know if you've read the now considered Legends Kenobi book by John Jackson Miller. I
didn't get into the reading really the Star Wars novels until the new canon.
It literally feels like this episode. Obviously it's Obi-Wan Kenobi as the star, but they have a couple of different characters who are Tatooine natives, and they have Cobb reminded me, outside of Aftermath, he kind of reminded me of the people that you would see in this Western, it felt very Western, novelizations, but it was still Star Wars. But this whole episode, and I know season 1 was kind of like this too. It always sort of felt like a Western that you would have seen in the 60s or 70s. But today's episode, just really laid it on with the Western aspect of the show.
Yeah, I mean, it was the whole show's a Western. Star Wars as a whole is a Western. That's not, and that's again something Favreau talked about in the gallery show, is that they didn't just look at Star Wars and be like, how are we going to adapt Star Wars here? They went to what was the material that inspired Star Wars. Let's go back to that and bring it in and talk about it here. So and see what we can do. And that's how you wound up with a very Japanese samurai episode in 104 last season, and it was very clearly a Kurosawa movie.
Which is how George Lucas was inspired.
Exactly. And it's very intentional that they sought out what George was watching when he wrote Star Wars, and they put it into this TV show. And that's why it feels almost more like Star Wars than anything we've gotten in recent years. Save maybe, I also just context, I've been living and breathing Star Wars for a couple months now because I had never watched them, and I binged the shit out of Clone Wars, and then I binged the shit out of Rebels, and then rewatched Mandalorian, and now we're here. And I also watched all of the movies in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
What about what about the Ewok TV movies?
It's not as readily available as you would expect.
I think that's by design, and I not to get too much on a tangent, but I really do wish, I legitimately wish that they would make the Droids animated series available. It was definitely for a younger audience, but the animation style is the same. It's the same company that did the short in the Christmas special, but I think it told like interesting stories from, I guess I don't even know exactly what the period was. It's definitely before A New Hope, and I don't even know what was canon and what wasn't. But it's Anthony Daniels, so it's like it's going to be at least that level of entertaining. The Ewok movies we may never see again, but
hey, we're getting a new holiday special this year.
That's crazy. I cannot believe we're getting that.
And did you guys hear? Okay, so like with the Legos holiday special, did you hear what they're doing? They are.
If it's not a Wookiee getting a virtual lap dance, I don't care.
They have Rey fighting Darth Vader, and allegedly she meets young Ben Solo. So they're basically doing like a twisty, warpy kind of, time doesn't matter. But I want to see Rey fight Darth Vader.
I mean, that's very Lego.
If there's not a Lego B. Arthur and a Lego Art Carney, I am not watching. All right, I'm not interested. Nothing says Star Wars in the holiday season like actors from the 70s in their 70s.
Don't forget Harvey Korman.
We'll see.
I had until you said that. Before we dive back into a major topic, this has come up a few times in the chat from a few different people. How do we feel about the runtime being 55 minutes? I'll go first. I loved it. I hated those short episodes. When episodes would be like 32 minutes in the first season, there were ones that were that short. There were a number of them. Like after the first one, I'm like, oh wait, right. This isn't a show that's almost an hour. This is a half-hour show that occasionally goes long. Mm-hmm. So I would love more episodes that are closer to an hour. But
what I'm hoping is that they were kind of testing the waters with season 1, and that this season where it's all going to be, at least 50 minutes, because really you need that amount of time to tell this kind of story. So I'm hoping that we don't get short episodes ever again.
It may also have been a budgetary thing of like, look, when you got a first season show, even a Star Wars show, especially a Star Wars show, because it's a very you don't know how the audience is going to react to this kind of thing.
I mean, for literally a brand new streaming service, day one, it had the pilot or the premiere for The Mandalorian. So I hope we get closer to an hour.
If they only budget that this movie had was profits from the sales of Baby Yoda merchandise, they would have plenty of budget. This is a case of, I pre-ordered it when they first were like, hey, we're making Baby Yoda toys. You can pre-order this. And it said 10 inches. And I went, that's pretty small. Pre-order. And then I forgot. And then it shipped and it got here. And it's basically a life-size Baby Yoda.
Oh. Well,
look at this. This is a life-size Baby Yoda. Yeah. It's 10 inches tall. And then the ears. The box that came in was huge.
Yeah, the ears really go the long way for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think on that alone, they should be golden, just from the character and the merchandise. But
I think that's why they could get Boba Fett this season. Is they basically, after the reception last year, they were just like, Disney's just like, whatever you want, you got it.
And, the fact that we keep hearing, about Rosario Dawson and Ahsoka, I am excited to see what they can do in terms of characters that they'll bring in that, I know like a lot of fan comments I've been reading say that people do not want more of Skywalkers. They want other characters, but there's
For the love of God, no more Skywalkers.
Yeah, but like I would love to see somehow, they bring in like Ezra, for example. And Zach, I saw you had just binged Rebels.
I mean, look, I ordered a new mask this week and it came in, and I'm just
sweet.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was going to mainly agree with you. I think Ahsoka, bringing in Ahsoka, Sabine especially, and Ezra would be a perfect thing to do this season. One, it'd be fun to see those characters live, but also the way that it ended for those three characters, very open. Spoilers for Rebels, but like I think if you're watching Mandalorian, you're probably gonna get some this year anyway. Like Ahsoka and Sabine being a Mandalorian, setting out on a mission to find a Jedi named Ezra, and you've got Mando on a mission to find the Jedi via Mandalorians to deliver Baby Yoda. It's all right there.
And the thing is, they could theoretically bring Thrawn into this too, and he would be,
Oh yeah, he would have to pop up. I mean, if you bring Ezra in, you have to pay. You have to at least
a live action Thrawn is something that I think we've all needed to see for just about 30 years. So
well, yeah, exactly, and Timothy Zahn just wrote another book, and there's another Thrawn book coming out, and the one that just released is amazing. By the way,
I was looking for a box before. That's why I was so distracted, because I knew right here behind me were a whole bunch of these.
Dark Empire.
This is Dark Empire 2, and I'll show off some other stuff in the end, but then also the Dark Force Rising series. So I basically I was all in up until like the book started coming out, like a new book every month. And I was like, I was already buying too many comics, Star Wars and superheroes. I was just like, I just didn't have time to read all of it.
So, speaking of Dark Empire, Zach, we kind of mentioned the legends of how Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit. What are your overall thoughts on, one, seeing Boba Fett again, but also, I'm sure you're familiar with the, Legends history of him, basically.
I'm not, to be honest. Legends is something I never got into. But that said, I have thoughts on how Boba Fett, like in this canon, might have just like gotten out.
So what are your thoughts?
I mean, I have to think like, look, he's a survivor. Like he's covered in Mandalorian armor. He's covered in Beskar. I think he just either he jetpacks his way out, blasts it out with the cannon on the back, which I have questions about how it keeps getting refilled. But that's I had
that thought as I was watching this. By the way, I was like, wait, where did he get more of those?
Yeah, like I mean, I guess that you could like theoretically, if you just have somebody who's good with machines, they could like build a new one.
Sure. I guess.
Do they have 3D printers in Star Wars world?
Maybe another version of that somehow.
But anyway, so like something like that where he like jetpacks out or blasts his way through and crawls out. My biggest question is, so we never saw. I mean, in Rebels, when he's a kid, you see his face, but since he put on the Mandalorian armor. Like as we've known Boba Fett in this canon, we haven't seen him remove his helmet. Do you think that Boba Fett is an Orthodox Mandalorian?
So here's my thought there. When you look back at the original trilogy, we really only got him for not even 10 minutes total. Like it was
that's
a very
the thing about Boba Fett.
That's in two movies. Between two movies,
he does nothing.
He has like, I don't know, does he have like 6 lines in the 2 films?
Not even.
Now here's the thing: in the prequel trilogy, we got to see him with his dad, and we got a lot more with him as a child. So, but even then, I don't think he said a lot. But the point is that as a Mandalorian, We don't know how often he took off the helmet, what the situation was. We also know that there's an entire clone army that look like him. And so maybe I almost have a thought that maybe he did not want to be recognized as Boba Fett any longer. And, not that there would be a reason for him to kind of disappear, but maybe he felt like as someone with the face of the clone army, maybe he felt like he could kind of blend in a little bit further like that.
Is this a good time to talk about the reveal at the end? Yeah.
We're talking about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we all know, like the fact that we do see that he's there and that he's on Tatooine. At first, my brain went into, is that really Boba Fett, or is that one of the, members of the clone army? But they actually credit him on IMDb as being Boba Fett, so...
Yeah, it's also I had the thought because having just watched Clone Wars, when I heard that he was going to be on the show, I was like, oh, I hope it's like Rex and they're going to do live action Rex or something crazy like that.
I had that thought too.
But the way this reveal was done, there was no way it was anybody but Boba Fett.
Yeah, I agree.
It would be that would require you to have watched the Clone Wars to get caught up there. Not that you can't introduce a clone trooper, but it would be a fake out to so many people, and that would just piss off the general public that wasn't a Clone Wars fan.
And from what I read, this was the actor who played Jango Fett in the prequels, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I mean, it stands to reason that that's definitely who this is. And I mean, it was definitely a very cool reveal. Where, and I think, Zach, that's a great reason as to why he's like, I can't be walking around in that armor. Everybody knows who I am,
Well, I don't know that it's everybody knows who I am. So that's why I was curious about your thoughts on the religion, because if he, according to the Mandalorian Creed as presented in this show, it's obviously a little bit different than how it was portrayed on Rebels, because they all take their helmets off, whatever.
Yeah.
But the way it's presented on this show, if it was removed by an enemy, he can no longer put it back on. So he may have intentionally abandoned the armor as his form of Mandalorian shame.
The only thing I'm going to mention, this is also from Legends, because Legends is kind of I don't want to, obviously they could do something completely different, but in Legends, there was another bounty hunter named Dengar who found Boba Fett and helped him and basically helped him get back to health because he was almost dead, crawling out of that thing. And so I'm wondering if, what you're saying, Zach, that it is maybe because he, maybe this other bounty hunter kind of bested him in a way. And that's kind of why he feels too much shame to ever put the helmet back on. My other thing is that it is, speaking to Rebels, where Sabine and we knew that certain tribes who were part of the Mandalorian did not wear the helmet all the time. So I almost think, we know, I know Dave Filoni, very involved in both Rebels as well as he is involved with Mandalorian. It's hard for me to believe that they would have a show like Rebels with Mandalorians taking off their mask if it wasn't part of canon. So I almost wonder if it's just different, sects of Mandalorians who follow different rules.
Yeah, that's why before I had referred to it as Orthodox Mandalorian, because I think I think it is. It's one of the families, one of the tribes that.
He's not a reformed Mandalorian who puts bacon on his locks. Okay.
You're having bacon and lox together. Not actually. The bacon is. I take it back.
Yeah,
the bacon.
The meat. Yeah.
But I have questions about the bacon and lox combination. It's another time.
I mean, I would just look. I would wrap a Womp Rat in bacon. I'm sure it would be delicious. You know.
Yeah.
But it's funny because Dengar. People are commenting on Dengar in the chat, and you talk about how little Boba Fett is in the trilogy. You have all these like cool looking bounty hunters that they've done so much with in extended universe, and Marvel has an ongoing bounty hunter series right now with like Bosk in it, and I know we saw a Bosk in season 1. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, yeah, these characters are so cool. They don't do anything in the movies almost,
Yeah.
So
Dengar popped up in Clone Wars, I want to say.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was the name?
Dengar.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's all blending together in my head. I know it was either or Clone Wars or Rebels, but he did pop up.
Well, and then the other thing is that, just kind of, it's hard for me to think about this too without thinking about the end of The Rise of Skywalker, specifically that moment where Rey hears certain voices. And so we know that we never hear Ezra's voice. So it almost makes me think that somehow Ezra
be alive.
Exactly, but Ahsoka's voice we do hear. So most likely she has passed by that point. But it all makes me think. It makes me think that it all comes back to what we're going to see on Mandalorian. At least that's what I hope. I will kind of be disappointed if they don't do something with Ezra and Ahsoka and Rex. Even I would just because we see. I think you say his name, Tamora, right? The actor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm
Morrison.
Yeah, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but I know that we see him as Boba Fett right now, but that doesn't mean he couldn't also play Rex.
By the way, somebody in the chat mentioned that we did see Rex in episode 6 last year of Mandalorian. I think Daniel Drew mentioned it, so it was a flashback. So we actually saw a live action Rex. Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that is that it makes it that much more likely that we'll see it again.
Yeah.
Wait, we did?
He says in episode 6. I wanted very much to do a rewatch of Mandalorian before this, but
it wasn't Tamora Morrison as Rex, so he wasn't like a dialogue scene. I gotta go rewatch that episode now. I genuinely am confused. Anyway, but what I think we're looking at.
All right, sorry. I think he's saying Return of the Jedi episode 6. So now I'm just really confused. All right, never mind.
Wait, Return of the.
All right.
Whatever. We'll figure that out later.
Explain what it is, and we'll try and bring it in and clean it up. But go on.
But anyway, you've got, if you do bring like Sabina stuff in, or with Boba Fett, so like that's where I was going. All of this Mandalorian stuff. I think the idea of Boba having taken up the creed, because he would have been at some point in his life could have been considered a foundling, because like the last time we saw him, he was still a child on animated Boba Fett, and like he could have been a foundling, been brought into the Mandalorians. Like you could have found them like knowing that his father potentially stole the armor, although that's like old canon, I believe. I don't think that's been reestablished, but that Jango stole the Mandalorian armor, and Boba is looking for a way to prove himself as a true Mandalorian. But now he loses the armor and has to abandon it, because that's what the creed would say he has to be. So is it going to be there's like an interesting team up between Mando and Boba, or is Boba just be like, give me back my armor, and he comes in like shooting, and it's the two of them fighting, which would also be awesome to see.
I think we're definitely going to see fighing. I don't.
But is it like the fighting until we're like, all right, we're friends, or is it like long-term villain of the season?
I see it villain of the season. I don't think this is like a Cobb situation. I think this is a, because it's Boba, and to me, I know that we've seen so much of him from. Well, I'm thinking of everything with Legends and how he really had moments where he was actually helping everyone. So it isn't like he was this villain, but I don't know. I have a feeling that that's kind of where they might be going with it in Mandalorian, but I guess we'll see.
That Boba would be a hero?
No, that he might be more of a gray area villain.
Yeah, well, definitely gray area.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that, and like, yeah, I especially because again, if they're bringing in Ahsoka, she has had encounters with Boba Fett, So like it can all connect. It's all connecting here, guys. And the reason you bring Sabine in is because you have the Darksaber in play, and I believe the last time we saw it was with her family.
Yeah, like I don't think she directly has it, but I think that it was.
She passed it to the head of what's her name? That was the head of Death Watch, and it was her sister was the Countess.
Oh, Satine's sister. I'm trying to think of her.
Satine's sister. I forget her. Whatever. Satine's sister was the last one to hold it, but like Sabine gave it directly to her. So like the true fall of Mandalore, like we have to assume that Moff Gideon was like potentially with the two of them.
Yeah, and So I really hope that they are bringing in. I will be happy if they bring in half of those characters. Just like at some point, we just need to see them. But we are starting to wind down to the top of the hour here. So, Christian, did you want to give your final thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, I think that when we were just in the rumor stage that we would see Boba Fett in season 2, I was very annoyed because I just he was dead and I wanted him to stay dead because we were back to a canon where he was dead, and I'm just like I don't need it. The guy is essentially an under 5 in a trilogy. He has less than 5 lines. They don't have to pay him like a real actor, so he's clearly, thank you. I'm glad somebody liked that. But I mean, I've always loved that armor. So seeing it was really cool. And I think I've definitely come around. And I think I said this before Zach was on. The fact when we saw Mando fly out from the dragon, like, oh yeah, see, look, you can't eat Mandalorian armor. Okay. That's to already establish like why the Jawas were able to get Boba Fett's armor. The Sarlacc probably didn't just spit out the armor. So I think they've done a good job kind of laying the groundwork, and it'll definitely be interesting. I mean, look, it's like you're going to tell a story about the Mandalorian. You should have the character that is famous who first brought us that armor, that look, So I've come around on it basically through the course of these 51 minutes that was this episode. But I did not want him to come back, but now I'm kind of excited to see how they explain it. And the what I was referencing a little bit earlier is actually this right here. This is the first time that Boba Fett came back in 1984. You see him there. He flew out of the Sarlacc and then conveniently at the end ends up right back into it. But and then just a few years later flies out in Dark Empire, So, and here we are now, like almost 40 years from Return of the Jedi, and now Boba Fett's gonna fly back out of the Sarlacc again. So
for good, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was very excited. I can't wait to see where it goes. I love the tone for this. I think that building, like we were saying earlier, Rachel, not missing a beat. Somebody who gets to binge like 3 seasons of this one day, it's not going to feel like, oh, this is an abrupt change, So I'm very excited to have the show back. And the fact that we live in a time, where we can't go outside. But other than that, we live at a time where on Thursday I can watch a brand new Star Trek show. And then on Friday I watch a brand new Star Wars show. What else do I need? I don't need to go outside. Who needs movies?
Yes, and they're both Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
Oh man. But so Zach, do you have any final thoughts you wanted to give about the episode?
Oh man, I just had such a good time. Like it was like basically exactly what I wanted it to be. It was fun. It was just like deep nerdiness, like in all the best ways. Had some fun cameos, started building us towards a bigger story. And like we have him like on the hunt for the Jedi. Like, so we're gonna get the ground level perspective on the Jedi, which is gonna be really interesting to see. because that was like my favorite. That was one of the craziest lines of last season. Was a band of sorcerers known as Jedi, and like everyone reacting like, "What the hell are Jedi?" Because like we've never seen that side of this galaxy. It's always been the Jedi are the biggest, most important thing in the whole universe. And then these people are like, I don't know from fucking Jedi.
That was very interesting. It's not like, you know, the Han Solo, like, all right, this hokey religion, you know, these guys who do basically parlor tricks, you know, like, oh, Obi-Wan, are you gonna find some credits behind my ear? Great. So the fact that it's just people who haven't heard of them, and you know, sort of talking about the galaxy and getting to see people. I thought it was nice to see Amy Sedaris' character again. So I thought that we have like a small but very, very usable extended cast on this show. And I clearly we're going to see Carl Weathers again, and you know all that. But I don't know. I think it's cool to just kind of remember that, like, oh yeah, these are all part of Mandalorian's story. You know.
Yeah, it was nice seeing Motto again, and I love that, you know, she kind of, I think that's one of the last things I want to say is that she called out all the fans of the child when she said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you again. It's been so long." She was literally like, I felt like that was thrown in there to kind of mirror what everyone at home is thinking, because Jon Favreau knew that line was going to resonate with so many people. Exactly, Zach. Exactly. And we all need our own life size to scale the child. But I'm so excited to see what they do the rest of the season. I'm happy that we got so many Easter eggs. We got a hint, and not just a hint, but we actually saw Boba Fett. I love that. What I am hoping they do, we had this one episode where a lot happened, but at the same time, not a lot. Like it's kind of like we had a lot happen in the sense of, okay, well, we had all these Easter eggs, we had Boba Fett, we had, the Tuskens coming together with humans and slaying a krayt dragon. Yes, we had all those things happen. It hit all the beats of what it should hit. But we also didn't get a lot of crazy new revelations outside of that ending with Boba Fett. So what I'm hoping is that we kind of dive more into the Jedi as viewed from normal individuals living away from that sphere. But also, I do want to see the child kind of interacting more with other creatures that, whether they're Jedi or not, are still Force sensitive, and I really want to see what they do with that. So I really loved this first episode, and I'm just excited for more. I'm excited that we have Star Wars again. I will take it, even if it wasn't that good, which it was, but even if it hadn't been that good, I still would have been excited to have it. So
even if it had been the Ewok adventure,
I'm here for it.
I mean, it's look, I love the Ewoks, so I have no problem with it. Let me just tidy up what Daniel was trying to explain to us. So, seeing Rex was made canon. The old man with a beard on Endor with them. This is in episode 6. He was just a random rebel, and they retroactively made that to be Rex. So his Rebels epilogue design is close to the costume from episode 6. So it's
I had heard about
I'm assuming that must be that must be something that Lucas did in, like when he put Hayden Christensen in, he's like, I'm going to put other characters in. I'm going to put Howard the Duck in.
It wasn't even that much.
I'm going to put David Bowie's character from Labyrinth.
It was literally just an extra that like kind of looked like it might have been the old man, and so they like just designed his Rebels appearance in that era to be like, oh yeah, that's totally Rex. Because you do have that. Anytime you do prequels that year, like, well, where are these people during these big battles? Like you kind of have to find reasons. Like, where the hell was Ahsoka during all the Death Star runs? We have questions. But like stuff like, so you have to find reasons for them to be elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Which they started like cleaning up. They're like, oh, where was like Hera? She was totally on that base because we put dialogue in, and then you can see the ghost in the background.
Yeah, exactly. And they will, like, even in The Rise of Skywalker, you saw the ghost in the final battle of Exegol. So they find a way. But yeah. Okay, so Christian, where can everyone find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you're watching this show, you're seeing it on the Blackcast YouTube channel, most likely, although you might also be watching on Twitch or Facebook. But if you subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, you'll see not only this show, we reference Star Trek Discovery, which we didn't do this week, but we'll double up next Friday. Rachel, Nikki, myself, and we'll see who else can join us. We do that. I'll be doing for anybody that doesn't want to live in a fantasy land and suffer from the real world. Election night on Tuesday, we'll be doing the Trump report around 7:30 Pacific time. And also, of course, we do Marvel Movie Talk. We really dove into Hellstrom, didn't we, Rachel?
Yeah. 10 out of 10 would not recommend.
No, but Ghost 8386 definitely strongly disagreed with the three of us on that. Rachel, Michael, and myself. But we can, so you can find that show and, of course, the Blackcast itself, all at BLADTCAST, YouTube, and then blackcast.com for the podcast proper.
Awesome. And Zach, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at that Zach Wilson. It's on the screen right there. ThatZachWilson. That's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Follow me for random tweets and thoughts.
And if you want to, I know I was definitely watching when you were live tweeting Mandalorian. So lots of interesting tweets over there to be seen.
Was I? I only put out, because I don't like to live tweet when people are worried about spoilers. I put out one tweet that was what Christian was saying before. I can't believe Spoiler wrote spoiler and spoiler, which I think was pretty vague. So, like, no one knew what the fuck I was talking about.
Well,
but if
considering
you saw the
that
episode,
I thought it was something else, yeah.
That was pretty, that you thought I was completely talking about something else. So maybe I made it too vague.
By the way, in the chat, shockingly, Ivan Soto is talking about how he's never seen the original trilogy. Would you like to borrow my original Blu-rays or possibly my VHS? These are before the special editions.
Yes.
But just in case you want to see what a nerd I am, these are the widescreen original editions. So they're VHS widescreen because I needed to have the actual aspect ratio. So
I mean, I would have done the same, but those were hard to find.
Yeah.
I had to order it special, and I have a means to watch it, but I don't know. I haven't watched that version in so long.
Well,
I gotta find my old VHS tapes.
I have all of mine in the closet. I have the special edition when they re-released all of them once they came out with the prequels.
I know we need to wrap up, but did either of you ever check out the radio drama for Star Wars Empire, and then they later did one for Jedi? It had Mark Hamill, and it also had John Lithgow as the voice of Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, and it adds a lot of stuff. It's like the stories from it's like 5 hours, so there's just more like interesting stuff that's probably none of it's canon. But it's in here somewhere is why I'm mentioning it. I actually don't know where it is, but somewhere in here I have this on cassette.
I have heard of it, and I've seen it actually. Someone posted it online. I have not yet listened. Yeah. But
I highly recommend it.
I will have to take a listen then. Well, you can find me on Twitter at either @Rach Goodman or @Rachel Radner. You can find me on Instagram @Rachel Radner Author. I write romance novels, so if that is your thing, you can find my books on Amazon @Rachel Radner. And that's pretty much it for now. You can also find me here with Christian doing, a few shows, and and if you like
Marvel, Star Trek, Star Wars, just the minor indie stuff.
Yeah. And if you happen to like soap operas, I do a show on at Restless Wrap on Facebook for the young and the restless. So that wraps up the show for this week. We will see you all next Friday.
This is the